Alright, what is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel, Connor on Chain. So, I want to cover a bunch of different things going on in the market. There's been so much happening in the last 24 hours to 48 hours here. Let's cover everything. We had a lot of different coins moving, a lot of coins, going crazy. Pump.fun going crazy as well. So, first things first, we're going to go to Twitter. So, I want to pull up Pump.fun. So, the thing with Pump.fun right now, we're starting to see Pump accelerate. Obviously, price wise, which I'll show you guys in a second, but it seems like in the last legitimate 2 days, we've seen streaming on Pump.fun become this legitimately like semi-viral thing. And it's wild because even like weeks ago, Pump was still kind of dead, right? And now people are starting to see that with Pump.fun's potential flywheel that they have, streamers are coming on, streaming for a day, a couple days, even a week, and they are earning anywhere from thousands a day, upwards of like, 30, 50, 100K just for streaming because, it's something new. They call it the CCM meta. I don't know who coined it, Creator Capital Markets, but Pump Fun has basically been accelerating this, and as far as Pump 2, so Pump has been like a very good trade. This is one we also got in the group. And this is also on Twitter and on YouTube, catching the bottom here. But in our group, we have also sold, out of a lot of our pump as well. So the thing with this video that I want to cover is, we do have rate cuts coming in a few days from now, less than a week. And my thoughts is that I do think that we are going to see a lot of volatility. I'm actually expecting some sort of downside. I don't think it's going to be, this giga nuke. I've heard people say cycle's going to be over, rate cuts hit, cycle's over, to all this shit. I actually don't think that's going to happen, but I do think we do see some volatility, mainly on obviously Bitcoin, ETH, and majors. But I think Bitcoin here, aside from, can't even talk, potentially today and tomorrow, still might have some juice, but I think as we get into the middle and end of next week until rate cuts, Bitcoin might go up a little bit, chop, but I think it's going to have some sort of downside. And again, when I say downside, I mean like we might have a very short term dip, whether the dip lasts literally 2 days, maybe a week, week and a half. Maybe it is drawn out like that a little more than I thought or more than I'm thinking, but that is what I'm kind of expecting for the market. But I think after that fear is kind of priced in, because I am expecting some sort of sell the news with it. I think, aside from any sort of dips, I think things are going to start pushing right after that again. Keep in mind, guys, I'm not a financial advisor. I don't have a crystal ball. This is what I'm doing and what I've been paying attention to. I'm expecting some sort of downside. I don't think rate cuts are just going to make Bitcoin God candle like some people think. People have been waiting for this for months. Bitcoin has been holding a very strong uptrend for a long time. And like I said, I think potential downside is coming. Again, I don't think the cycle's over. Bitcoin's not just gonna, do something like this in a week, right? But it's probably gonna be choppy. Maybe it does dip again. Until when? Until the fear is kind of set in after a few days, maybe a week or more. Then we're probably going to accelerate again. And I'm not even just Bitcoin. I don't know if Bitcoin is just going to print into a new high. Maybe it takes a little while if it's going to. But I think it's going to be the case for most majors though as well. Even ETH. Like ETH ETH right here is literally at um, resistance for a third time. And this is where it gets sketchy. Even though technically it is still holding bullish structure. It looks kind of weird. But we do have higher highs, higher lows. Higher high was formed here into a new low. But as long as ETH can hold around 43, 44, and then actually end up going well above 5K in the next, maybe it does still take a week or two. If that happens, this is still going to be something that fully accelerates like the push here. So that's what I'm watching because I don't know if rate cuts are actually going to tank the market, very short term, as in ETH is just going to, go all the way back down to this resistance, pull some sort of weird head and shoulders looking pattern. Or if it's going to be very minor, maybe it comes back down into this, internal range, chops a bit, and then comes that back up. But my bias is still bullish. It's just I almost feel like rate cuts right now are just going to be a minor bump in the road to then continue pushing a lot higher for basically everything. That's what I'm looking at right now. But again, I could be wrong. I'm never right 100% of the time. Just FYI. And it's like what I've been doing lately because I knew the market was going to price in rate cuts. The pricing in of those rate cuts is what accelerated the market the last week. So we had a lot of good plays, a lot of good trades. And like I said, pump has just been the most obvious trade. I really do hope anyone and everyone kind of caught that. That was kind of just free money. You know, we had a bunch of different good trades. Aoki's been performing. We had Robotics starting to pick up as well. Same thing. We could see a dip across all of these coins, narratives, even if it's very minor for a few days. That potentially is going to be your time to then jump into coins that you might have missed, or if coins that you really like and they're finally dipping, probably going to be a time to then jump in. Um, I was going to talk about a few other things, but we'll cover, I guess, a few things that have been happening in the trenches too. Because, like I said, so we got this bag work coin. If you guys have been watching the market, this thing went ballistic. So, why don't we go to Pump Fun's platform though? So we got Pump Fun here. Them implementing all these streams to me is so interesting because this actually like opens up an entire avenue for anyone to come onto the platform. Obviously, it's them launching a token with their stream attached to it, but it gives them the creativity to do something different, to potentially, make their coin run like crazy. And they're not going to be trading. They don't need to be trading, you know, and trenching every day. If they're streaming, they actually are earning off creator rewards. We actually just saw, I think, Phase Sway. I think he just launched this coin. I don't know if it was today, but I think off his creator fees, he's already made at least like mid five figures or something like that. And I think it's actually just crazy to see because people will likely want to just get part of this action. And the reason why, again, is if they launch a token, they can earn off, their creator fees. But the other side of this that I think a lot of people are not really seeing, because I know it's a very new hype narrative right now, is the fact that I think it's still going to be somewhat short lived of a narrative because it is the way crypto is. Crypto investors, they genuinely do not give a single fuck about what a streamer is doing. If you can make money on the streamer and their token, that's what you're buying it for, right? That's what 95% of people are going to buying things for. And we're already seeing a lot of streamer coins, not bag work, but lots of streamer coins are launching. They're bullish for a day or two, and then what happens? They dump and they die out. Because I've seen a lot of people talking that Pump Fund, it will overtake Twitch. It's going to be the next multi-year, streaming business. But I guess that's good to pump everyone's bags. But for a long-term perspective, people are going to have to figure out how are they going to keep their coin alive, because their coins are the reason why they'd be making money. Crypto does not just go up only forever. Narratives in crypto specifically only last anywhere from a few days to maybe a month. And obviously this did just start, so I think it's going to continue for a little while. And it's on Sol, and it's Pump Fund token, so it might last a good amount of time. But same thing, if the market has a major correction, and I don't think it will have a crazy one that short term, but if let's say we actually top out or something, in a few months from now, streaming coins, they're not just going to be popping up left and right. You're not going to be seeing, multi-month uptrends on these streaming coins unless it's something crazy. It's the same thing that works in crypto in every single narrative. It's hype for a little while until the entire narrative eventually just dies out, falls off, or let alone in this case, I think just if and when Pump decides to not just go up only for a while, I think a lot of the streaming meta as well will slow down. But at the end of the day, I'm not trying to say I'm bearish on anything they're doing. It's very good, but you have to understand, who's actually buying these tokens, why are you buying them? People are, I don't know how to explain it in another way. just got to be very cautious with this stuff, and especially if you're degenning into a lot of these. um, a lot of them are basically pump and dumps. They're very, very quick to run and then quick to dump again. I'm personally not looking too much into this at the moment. There are a few coins that I found kind of interesting with it, but yeah, like Bagwork here ended up pulling crazy moves just in the last like couple days here. But like I said, I think short term, I do think this is going to continue for a little bit. But outside of that, guys, I'm still just watching for new coins. Not really new launches like degen plays, but new narratives and coins that could potentially start an entire new narrative. Whether the token has great fundamentals, a good flywheel, things like that. This list over here kind of sums up most of them that I'm still watching. But at the current moment, there's not too many new ones that I really can see just pulling something almost like what Pump did. Other than robotics, I think robotics is still going to be a narrative that kind of moves forward. I think too, it's just outside of crypto with robotics, we haven't seen really anything crazy yet. That is where I'm still bullish as fuck on robotics because we don't even have humanoids out to the public like that yet. We don't have any of this stuff that's going to happen soon, whether it's in months from now or even years. If something like that did end up happening, anything and everything robotics would pick up in a second. And it's already picking up a little bit, on crypto Twitter, things like that. But I think if we get a chat GBT moment for robotics, which I still think hasn't fully happened yet, that narrative is going to flip overnight into a huge, huge narrative. And I've seen people on my timeline last few days too I've seen them saying that all, robotics coins are bullshit. It's not going to be a thing. It's a joke. Like, this is a scam narrative. I agree to a point in a sense that yes, 99% of any tokens that are going to be robotics, they are going to be scams. That's why I legitimately almost solely talk about Aoki. Aoki is, I believe, a true gem in this market, in this narrative. I've been bullish on this all the way since like October, November last year. It's been a long time coming, but it's like, sometimes you're just way too early to a trend, or a project itself is building something where, most people just don't see the value in. But that's, for me personally, that's what I look for, is I look for things that people purposely aren't going to see the value for until it hits them in the face and they're already way too late. But as far as in the market right now, that's what I wanted to cover. I do think things are going to chop, be sideways, and potentially dump a little bit going into next week. But if there are good dips happening in the market on really good fundamental coins, for example, guys, like Pump here, if Pump can actually just, have a couple really bad red days, even like 2 or 3 red days, if we come back onto support, we sit sideways, we bounce, I have a feeling that's going to be when you actually want to jump in, because I don't think the market is just going to be over, right? Pump especially is going to probably continue into the end of the year. This is definitely going to be a top 30, top 50 coin, I think, by the end of the cycle. If we get the Q4 that we're all waiting for, that we want to see. But that's it. That is what I'm doing in the market. That is what I'm watching for. Also, Solana 2 is back at resistance. This is something I kind of felt was coming. Like I said, you could draw this momentum with a pen tool if you wanted. And it usually plays out in crypto when the sentiment's correct, or the sentiment is, bullish. But usually now that we're at resistance, I wouldn't be surprised if this just breaks to something like this. And then again, if we could just get mad bullish or something in October, then maybe, something like Sol, a lot of other coins end up just really pushing. So that's what I got for you guys today. This was just like a small market update. I'm actually going to drop a video depending on how the market conditions are in the next couple days. Talking about just the top altcoins that you should be buying, accumulating right now, because I think it's just key. I feel like there's a lot of great coins out there, and if a lot of them can come down to really good entries, I want to make a video just to show you guys what I think is going to run going into the next couple months, where you can position in when there's a big correction or a bigger dip, so you get an actual entry and you're not top blasting, and then you can ride out a good narrative that has a lot more to it than just some random shit coin, right? So that's what I got for you guys. I appreciate it, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks.